On May 15, 2026, Zahi Hawass sat across from Piers Morgan in a television studio in London. Morgan asked him about the sarcophagus found 30 meters below the Giza Plateau, in a flooded shaft that had been sealed for over 2,000 years. Hawass looked into the camera and said the sarcophagus was completely empty. 29 million people watched the original excavation live on Fox in 1999. Now, 27 years later, the man who personally opened that sarcophagus told the world there was nothing inside it. But in 2007, Hawass published a peer-reviewed paper through Harvard University. The title was The Discovery of the Osiris Shaft at Giza. It appeared in a festschrift honoring Egyptologist David B. O'Connor, published by the Supreme Council of Antiquities Press in Cairo, catalog number 5500. 2007. And on page 390 of that paper, Hawass wrote that the remains of a skeleton were discovered inside the sarcophagus. He also documented 2 schist amulets in the form of Osiris, and 9 additional artifacts, each one catalogued with a Giza Magazine accession number, each one measured and described. We are going to take you through every level of this shaft. We are going to name every artifact Hawass catalogued, and we are going to compare the sarcophagus at the bottom to the one inside the Great Pyramid. The measurements differ by 4 millimeters. The Osiris Shaft sits directly beneath the causeway of the Pyramid of Khafra, roughly halfway between the Great Pyramid and the Great Sphinx. The entrance is cut into the pavement of the causeway itself, visible from the surface as an unremarkable rectangular opening in the stone. And the first person to document it in modern history was not Hawass. In 1835, the Italian explorer Giovanni Battista Caviglia identified the opening while working in the shadow of the second pyramid. 2 years later, the British surveyor John Shea Perring mapped it as shaft number 1 on his detailed survey of the Giza Plateau. Colonel Howard Weiss published Perring's findings in his 3-volume work, Operations Carried On at the Pyramids of Gizeh, released in London between 1840 and 1842. But none of them descended past the first level. The shaft was too deep, too dark, and choked with centuries of wind-blown sand and rubble. It took nearly a century before anyone went further. The shaft sat open on the causeway, visible to every tourist walking between the pyramids, and nobody climbed down. In 1934, the Egyptian archaeologist Selim Hassan and his team from Cairo University reached the shaft during their 6th excavation season at Giza. Hassan was methodical. He had already spent 5 seasons mapping the Western Cemetery, clearing mastaba tombs, and publishing detailed reports through the Egyptian government press. His team included surveyor Mahmoud Darwish, who produced the measured drawings that would later appear in Volume 5 of Hassan's excavation reports. What they found beneath the causeway changed our understanding of what lies beneath the plateau forever. The first shaft drops 9.62 meters straight down through the Mokattam limestone formation. The opening at the top measures 2.6 by 3.0 meters. At the bottom, Hassan entered a rectangular chamber cut into the bedrock, and in the floor on the eastern side, he found a second shaft. This one measured 1.9 by 1.9 meters at its mouth. It dropped 13.25 meters into darkness. When Hassan's team reached the bottom of that second shaft, they entered a spacious underground hall surrounded by 7 burial chambers, each one carved directly into the limestone walls. Hassan labeled them Chamber A through Chamber G. In Chamber C, he found a granite sarcophagus in anthropoid form, measuring 210 by 50 by 45 centimeters. In Chamber D, a massive basalt sarcophagus, 240 by 123 by 95 centimeters, with a lid 265 centimeters long and 30 centimeters thick. In Chamber G, another basalt box, 250 by 120 by 105 centimeters. Two of these basalt sarcophagi were so enormous that Hassan wrote he initially wondered whether they had been built to hold sacred bulls. But it was the eastern wall of this hall that stopped him. There, cut into the rock, was a third shaft. It measured 1.65 by 1.90 meters, and it dropped another 7.5 meters into water. Through the surface, Hassan could see a colonnaded hall with additional chambers and more sarcophagi. He could see them clearly. He could not reach them. Hassan's team installed pumps and ran them every single day for 4 consecutive years. In his 1944 publication, Excavations at Giza, Volume 5, page 193, Hassan wrote that continual daily pumping over a period of 4 years was unable to reduce the water level. He concluded that a spring must have broken through the rock. This was not stagnant water trapped in a sealed space. This was an active underground water source, continuously refilling the chamber. Modern science tells us why. A 2019 peer-reviewed study by Sharafeldin and colleagues at Egypt's National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, published in the journal Geoscientific Instrumentation, Methods and Data Systems, mapped the groundwater table across the entire Giza Plateau. They found that the plateau sits on Middle to Upper Eocene limestone, with 2 aquifer systems beneath it. The water table elevation averages about 15 meters above sea level, while the plateau surface near the causeway sits at roughly 60 meters above sea level. Level 3 of the Osiris Shaft, at 30 meters below the surface, sits right at the boundary of the saturated zone, and the water table has been rising. Sharafeldin's data shows a 1.5 to 2 meter rise since the 1980s, driven by sewage and irrigation leakage from the expanding suburbs of Cairo. Hassan could not have won. The water was always coming back. For 65 years after Hassan's attempt, the bottom level of the Osiris Shaft remained underwater. Tourists walked directly over it on the causeway. Archaeologists worked within meters of the shaft entrance. But the third level was untouchable. The water had won. That changed on March 2, 1999, when Fox Television broadcast a live primetime special called Opening of the Lost Tombs. The host was Maury Povich, with correspondent Susie Kolber covering the nearby pyramid of Queen Kamerunebti II. The executive producer was Peter Isaacson. The broadcast drew 29.5 million American viewers, making it Fox's highest-rated non-World Series Tuesday of the entire season. The special also featured the opening of the tomb of a high priest named Kai, where a 4,500-year-old mummy was discovered on camera, and the Tomb of the Unknown, which held the skeletal remains of 2 women presumed to be a wife and daughter. But it was the Osiris Shaft segment that generated the most anticipation. Hawass had been teasing the discovery for months. If research like this matters to you, the like button tells the algorithm to share this with more people. And subscribing means you will not miss what comes next. Because what Hawass found at the bottom of that shaft was documented in detail, and what he said about it 27 years later does not match. For the broadcast, Hawass had arranged industrial pumping equipment through the contractor Esmail Osman. Osman's team had been draining level 3 for months in advance. And for the first time since Selim Hassan peered through the waterline in 1934, human beings stood on the floor of the deepest chamber beneath the Giza Plateau. Hawass's 2007 paper describes what they found in exact detail. The chamber walls measure 5.24 meters, 5.56 meters, 5.76 meters, and 6.04 meters on 4 sides. They are not symmetrical. In the center of the floor, a trench is carved in the shape of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyph PR, meaning house. This trench surrounds a raised central platform, and on that platform sits a pseudo-anthropoid sarcophagus carved from black basalt, not granite. This is a critical distinction that nearly every popular account of the Osiris Shaft gets wrong. Hawass is explicit in his paper, black basalt. The exterior measures 228 centimeters long by 108 centimeters wide. The interior measures 200 by 72 centimeters. The lid, also basalt, measures 228 by 108 by 35 centimeters thick. At basalt's known density of 3 grams per cubic centimeter, that lid weighs approximately 2.5 metric tons. Several viral accounts have claimed the lid weighs 11 to 12 tons. That figure does not appear in any Hawass publication we have been able to locate. The math, using his own published dimensions, gives us 2.5 tons. Still enormous for a block of stone lowered through a shaft barely wider than the box itself. But not 12 tons. Inside the sarcophagus, Hawass found the remains of a skeleton. On pages 393 through 395 of the same paper, he published a full artifact catalog with Giza Magazine accession numbers. Every object was measured, described, and assigned a permanent inventory number. Object Giza PA 509 and Giza PA 510 are obsidian 2-finger amulets, measuring 10.8 by 2.7 centimeters and 8 by 2 centimeters. These are ritual objects placed over the incision made by embalmers during mummification. Object Giza PA 511 is a diorite scarab, 2.6 by 2 centimeters, stylistically dated to the 26th dynasty. Giza PA 512 is a schist scarab. Giza PA 513 is a tiny diorite bead with a 1 centimeter outer diameter. Giza PA 514 is a green faience Wadje pillar amulet standing 2.9 centimeters tall. Giza PA 515 and Giza PA 516 are blue faience, Atef plume amulets, and Giza PA 517 is a basalt Horus amulet depicting a man's body with a hawk's head, just 2.5 by 0.5 centimeters. 9 objects, a skeleton, 2 Osiris amulets, every single one recorded, measured, and catalogued in a peer-reviewed publication hosted by Harvard University. There is something else that complicates the dating entirely. Among the late-period artifacts, Hawass found red polished pottery with traces of white paint. He wrote that this pottery can be dated stylistically to the Old Kingdom, specifically to the 6th dynasty. The amulets point to roughly from 664 to 525 BCE. The pottery points to roughly from 2345 to 2181 BCE. 2 time periods separated by over 1,500 years, found in the same chamber at the bottom of the same flooded shaft. Either the shaft was used twice, separated by a millennium and a half, or the pottery was already ancient when the late period burial was placed inside it. Now consider the contradiction. In May 2026, Hawass told Piers Morgan the sarcophagus was completely empty. His own 2007 paper, still hosted on Harvard's digital Giza server as a freely downloadable PDF, says the opposite. Page 390. Skeletal remains, Osiris amulets, 9 catalogued artifacts with museum numbers. But the story runs deeper than a single television appearance. Hawass himself connected this shaft to one of the oldest written accounts of ancient Egypt. Herodotus visited Egypt around 440 BCE. In Book 2 of his Histories, chapter 124, he described an underground tomb beneath the pyramids. In the translation by George Campbell Macaulay, published by Macmillan in 1890, the passage reads that the pharaoh caused sepulchral chambers to be made for himself in an island, having conducted thither a channel from the Nile. An island surrounded by water, accessed by a channel deep underground near the pyramids. The passage is repeated and elaborated in chapter 127, where Herodotus specifies that the river comes in through a built passage and encircles an island in which Cheops himself lies. Two separate chapters, the same description: an underground island tomb reached by water. On page 390 of his 2007 paper, Hawass wrote that the Osiris Shaft can be identified with the underground tomb surrounded by water mentioned by the Greek historian Herodotus, who visited Egypt in the 5th century BCE. This is not our interpretation. This is the former Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities, identifying his own excavation site as the structure Herodotus described 2,500 years ago. The trench carved in the shape of the hieroglyph PR, surrounding a central island where the sarcophagus rests, matches the description with uncomfortable precision. There is one more detail not found discussed in any documentary on this subject. The sarcophagus inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid, measured by William Matthew Flinders Petrie in 1880, is 227.6 centimeters long by 98.7 centimeters wide. The sarcophagus at the bottom of the Osiris Shaft is 228 centimeters long by 108 centimeters wide. The difference in length is 4 millimeters. Two boxes, carved from two entirely different stones, basalt in one case and red Aswan granite in the other, one shaped like a human body and one a plain rectangle, sitting in two completely different locations beneath the Giza Plateau, share nearly identical lengths. No one has published a peer-reviewed explanation for this dimensional correspondence. In early 2025, the Italian physicist Filippo Biondi, affiliated with the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, presented synthetic aperture radar tomography data. His 2022 paper, published in the peer-reviewed journal Remote Sensing, covered the Great Pyramid's internal structure. In a December 2025 interview on the Joe Rogan Experience, episode 2443, and again on Jesse Michaels's program American Alchemy, Biondi stated that his Doppler tomography model independently reproduced the Osiris Shaft geometry down to approximately 37 meters as a ground truth validation for his broader scans. However, his more expansive claims about structures beneath the Pyramid of Khafra, presented at a March 2025 press conference in Bologna, have not been peer-reviewed. Lawrence Conyers at the University of Denver called the broader claims a huge exaggeration. Hussein Abdel Basir at the Bibliotheca Alexandrina described them as falling within the realm of deception. Former Egyptian Antiquities Minister Mamdouh al-Damati dismissed them as utterly baseless. We present both sides because the verified data should not be discredited by association with disputed claims. The Osiris Shaft itself is not in dispute. It exists. It was excavated. It was documented. The peer-reviewed record is clear. What remains unanswered is the most basic question of all. No radiocarbon dating has ever been performed on the skeletal remains. No isotope analysis. No strontium profiling. The dating relies entirely on stylistic comparison of the amulets and scarabs. And the 6th dynasty pottery in the same chamber raises the real possibility that the shaft itself is far older than the burial it contains. The bones that Hawass removed from the sarcophagus sit in a storage facility somewhere in Cairo. The 9 artifacts remain in the Giza Magazine. No independent research team has been granted access to Level 3 since 1999. 27 years. Not one independent verification. Hawass himself left his position as Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities in July 2011, during the upheaval that followed the Egyptian Revolution. He was sentenced to 1 year in prison over an administrative dispute related to a museum bookstore concession, though the sentence was suspended and later dismissed on appeal. Separate corruption charges were brought, and then dropped entirely in 2013 when the Attorney General for Public Funds Prosecution ruled that the submitted documents had been forged. He was not convicted of antiquities trafficking, despite widespread online claims. In the major trafficking case associated with his tenure, 7 other individuals were convicted after authorities estimated some 57,000 artifacts had been stolen from state warehouses. Hawass served as a prosecution witness in that case, not a defendant. But his relationship with the artifacts under his authority and his repeated contradictory public statements about what was found inside them remain a matter of public record. On page 388 of his paper, Hawass raises a question he never resolves. He notes 7 niches cut into the walls of the third shaft and suggests they might have been used for lowering a large basalt sarcophagus by using wooden beams. The shaft at that point is 1.65 by 1.9 meters. The sarcophagus is 2.28 meters long, and it weighs, with its lid, roughly 5 metric tons. The clearance on each side would have been less than 20 centimeters, lowering it through a passage barely wider than the box itself, in total darkness, 30 meters below the surface, through solid dolomitic limestone rated at 1,800 to 3,600 meters per second on seismic velocity surveys, is an engineering problem that has no published solution. No experimental archaeology team has ever attempted to replicate this procedure. The water is rising again. Scharfelden's 2019 data confirms the groundwater table continues to climb. Level 3 of the Osiris Shaft is more flooded today than it was in 1999. The chamber that Hawass drained at enormous expense is slowly disappearing again beneath the waterline. The skeleton is in storage. The 9 artifacts sit in a magazine. The PDF is still on Harvard's server. Page 390 is still there. The numbers have not changed, and the shaft is still waiting.